welcome to All My Art and Soul. I'm Michelle Holden, and this is a book cover that I decided to make. I know there's a few pages left in this abstract art journaling series, but to finish off, I tend to do my book covers at the end, just waiting and seeing the feel of the journal pages to trigger any ideas that I might have. So, as I said before, welcome to the last. I did this, I think, on the 30th. I finished it up on the 30th, I believe, not New Year's Eve. And I like to also finish them with a nice high gloss so it protects them, and then I can bring them out, look at them, and finish up any other pages. So I was inspired by a nice, flat, neutral, warm background. This is an 11 by 14 Canson mixed media. I forget the weight. It might be 140. I don't think it's that high, but it might just be 98 pounds. Anyway, so I put a layer of gesso, then a layer of tissue paper, crumpled it up, glued it down with the high gloss. No, I think I decided to use Mod Podge, just the flat Mod Podge, because it really takes the paint nicely. And on the right is a mixture of the neutral Titan buff, yellow oxide, yellow ochre, and white. So as you can see, I'm mixing those up as I go along, trying to get sort of a variety, sort of a subtle blend. I just didn't want it totally one color. And you can see as I'm trying to, using, I think, a 3/4 inch brush, it's soft, and getting in and around those coils, since the brush was narrow, was fairly easy. Yes, some paint gets on them, but after everything's said and done and dry, it's very easy to just, with your finger, or as you'll see in the video, so stay and wait and see to the end, I use, what is that? Steel wool, and it rubs off. So I've skipped ahead because, that can be pretty boring, watching me paint this one color. And now I'm getting in and around those coils with the same layer. It's bumpy and rough, and I really like it that way. I won't always do it. This is the same technique, but this is the first thing that I thought of. It was fast and easy. After this layer dries, and I use this fine brush to get in and under, let me just backtrack. You'll see me push down, which reveals a lot more space between the coil and the front cover. So I can reach in with my brush without really touching or messing up the coils so much. As you can see, I'm just wiping it off, scraping it off, damp rag, and my finger. So why have I decided to do this? Well, I just want them to have, a nice home. And these abstract journaling pages, because of the tape and the edging, they do come off as a finished piece, which some that I really like, I have used and am using for my art products. If you haven't checked out my art product page on my website, hop on over, because I do believe my abstract work lends itself to all over print kind of stuff, and I'm going to explore that road in 2022 as well. There's many aspects of being a creator, and we make our own rules, right? So that's what I'm doing, and I just love making those products. So anyway, back to the cover. So I'm just putting a lighter value over it, and you can see it's just bringing out the texture a little bit more. I'm sure some of you excuse me, have used this technique If you haven't, it's a great fast way to get, you can even get more of an antique. You can use gold, metallic. There's so many options for this textural book cover. You can even get textures that emulate leather, embossing, all of those neat kinds of things. I didn't want to go that far, but I just love ochre. I just love it. And it was a nice contrast to all the blues and things on the inside. So, of course, using that little clay pottering tool to get into my raw umber. And I'm using a damp rag here. And now I'm just going to brush a very thin layer all around. Not going to worry about how even it goes, but trying to get it inside the coils, and not really wanting any heavy areas. As you can see, I'm sort of rubbing those away. I know in the upper area it created a little bit of a line, but that's just how the paper sort of lied down, and then the raw umber is getting caught in there. That's totally fine, because I am going to add collage pieces, stencil, and use some markers over top of this. So I noticed, because it wasn't totally dry when I touched it, anytime with the water, because acrylic and water, it lifted some of the layer there of gesso. Maybe that was an area that I didn't totally cover with the tissue paper. Who knows? But you can just add more acrylic paint on top of that. I can still see the mark here, and it's probably going to catch my eye. Oh, I end up putting some raw umber over it, and as you can see, it totally disappears. So trying to decide which shape do I want to start with first with my stencils. Oh, I love them all. I end up with just using the triangles, which are hexagons as well, in the lower portion of the cover. And at first, I just wanted a subtle. I didn't want a high contrast, so I'm putting them in. So this is a stronger hue. Using a cosmetic sponge. I just got those either at Walmart or the dollar store. Both are really inexpensive. And as I lifted, I just wanted to lift it to see, well, I can't really see the contrast. Now, I could see more, but, in the video, you can't, just because the lens just doesn't pick it up. So then I decided okay, I'm going to have this band go right across the bottom, and I decided to lighten it up with a little bit of Titan Buff, or whatever that neutral is called. They're very similar, depending what brand I'm using, of course. And I'm just making sure those lines are lined up. I'm just holding it down with my finger, which is stable enough, but and I'm worried about putting a piece of tape on the cover, because it might lift the not quite so dry tissue paper, gesso, and all of the layers that I've put down. So I'm going to then, yes, much better. And you might want to be careful as to the thickness or the amount of paint you put on your sponge. So the thicker, the drier, makes a crisper edge, and of course it doesn't get under that stencil. So I can see it's much better. I'm really liking this. And so I just keep going across. I started in the center because I wasn't sure which direction I wanted to go. And I like how some of the area, that one brighter triangle, is fine. So in my mind, I'm thinking primary and secondary colors. So I'm liking red and I'm liking blue that is going to go with this. Nice, colorful contrast, but also keeping the design very simple. I don't want to get too busy, which all of you know. Some of my pages tend to do that, but it's a learning experience. So again, why did the zigzag lines work? more than the other 3 stencils that I put down. Also the old cracks, I use that down below. And this is a cadmium red deep, as I remember. Liquid basics, nice and thick, and it a little goes a long way. So I'm mixing a little bit of the, I do believe that's the yellow oxide. Could be the ochre. So close. The yellow oxide is a much stronger, warmer hue, and I love that. So again, making sure your sponge has just enough, but not too much paint on it. I do believe this, it just sort of bleeds a little bit on the very, very left, and you can see how the stencil, that wasn't quite dry down below. So you really want to make sure that layer is dry before you lie anything on top. I found that was very sensitive, and I was careful. Yep, so I'm just making sure it's dry enough, because I guess I'm adding pressure, so it's pushing down, and then when I'm then lifting it off. So, but it's easy. So I'm just matching the hues, the values, I mean, of those triangles, making sure they're dry this time. And then I'm going to carry on the red, the 1, 2, 3, 4 zigzag lines right across. And I know I wanted red. I just wanted some lines. So I'm just finding where they match so they can continue fairly similarly. And I'm making sure I'm lining it up, but I'm not pushing down where I just finished painting and drying. So I didn't have any other lifting after that, but that's good to know, a good lesson. So it's only in the doing do we learn. I've spent months, weeks, and I still do, admiring, whoa, that almost did the same thing, other artists' work. Just to find out specifics. What does this artist do with their shapes, their layers, patterns? What works? Why do I like this piece? Why does it work? So I find if you do that, or ask yourself that question while you're perusing through other artists' work, it's very helpful to your own art process. And then you can borrow that principle from their art and apply it to your own in your own way. Sometimes it'll work. Most of the time it does. And but it just depends on what you're learning. It's an ever learning process, which I really love. So I don't know if you noticed, to the left, I chose a bunch of black and white because I love how black and white goes with all of this yellow and red as a beautiful contrast. So I'm laying out, some more triangles. No, it didn't work. I didn't end up choosing them. The circles with the orange, too busy. So no, there's enough lines and energy going on with the red, the triangles as a layer that's, as you can see, as it gets pushed back, it still adds to the cover, but it's not in the forefront, which that's what you always need to keep in mind. Never end up, this is what I used to do, being not liking a certain layer and then covering it up. Just leave it. You might put a thin layer of something on top, but just think of pushing it back, making it become background rather than obliterating it. Or in a more positive note, that's a bit harsh, veiling it. So that was my big bin of scraps, and I'm loving them. So if you hop on over to my Facebook group, you will see a new challenge. It is the 10-minute abstract art journaling challenge using a much smaller mixed media pad, of course. And just setting the clock 10 minutes and seeing what you can come up with, maybe with one simple intention. So hop on over and check that out. I will be uploading that January 1st, which is today, and then this video goes up on Sunday, which is tomorrow. A little late in doing the voiceover, but hey, that's okay. So now I've chosen more orange, red collage papers, bought scrapbook papers, ones that I've cut out in circles. I'm not really liking the blue, except for the circle, and I do end up using that. I'm really loving the handcrafted, the Japanese papers. And of course, I love doing that. Putting it right there where I've stenciled, because you can see its transparency with the higher contrast. And that ends up becoming less noticeable. And I think I put one more layer of something on there. So that neutral paper I really love, but I just didn't like it on this piece. It's just sitting there for now, but I end up moving it away. And yes. So that black paper is scrapbooking paper, the big squares that you would use to then attach all your scrapbooking theme to. And I just love it for its blackness. And then I love stamping, stenciling, and doing anything white or bright color using the stamping or the jelly plate collage. And I'll be creating this week a brand new set of collage papers using my jelly print and my other techniques for a new series coming up. So I can't wait to get started on that. Also, I will be filming or recording my larger pieces. So I'm going to move this intention of what I've learned in this past year, in 2021, onto larger pieces of work in a series, of course. Maybe painting over some old canvases. They're going to be 24 by 24. And I do plan on tackling my 2 5-foot by 6-foot canvases. So stay tuned for that. Of course, that'll be in several parts because layering on big work takes a lot of time. And wanted that circle, so wanted some sort of alignment, eclipse kind of idea. If you've noticed my work, it's that seems to be always in there, and I really like that idea. So this little piece that's in my hand right now was a jelly print with a metallic finish of a stencil on the top, and it has a little shine to it. So I'm just lying that in there. It's like, oh, more black and white, why not? No, it doesn't work. Why? Because the little grid of 369 dots below is enough. And adding that, because they were the same, it's too much the same. So it just didn't work. And I like being subtle in this area, so you can play around with so many things I could have added that were so close in value, and it would not disrupt the composition of the piece, of the cover. Now the swirly, I call them the Van Gogh marks, the swirly marks of the wind or whatever you want to say on the left. I just like that because it broke up the symmetry. It made it more asymmetrical. And that's why I'm planning or wanted to put something on the right, but end up doing my circles on the top. See, I'm trying to balance off that piece, but I think it's balanced enough. I end up putting a little something there, but of course something a lot smaller in a completely different shape. And that's what I love about collage, because you can just keep moving things around. That would have worked, but then too much weight on the left at that point. So then I would have had to do something over on the right. See how each each move directs another move. So I did these dots. I know I do this, it's sort of like a default. And I found them too tiny. I don't know the energy they created. So I just, at the end, if you say to the end, I just cover them back up with that ochre. So you can see them slightly, but not as much. And I'm trying not to do the same thing over and over again. But if something really works well, why not? So then, to stop the eye from going up and off of the cover, I'm bringing in some nice black lines. And I only want to do 3. 3, 5, 7, all those odd numbers. So instead of black, I chose to use my raw umber, and I'm going to go with 5 circles across the top. And since it has a lot of texture, so I've had to apply a lot more paint, but I like how raw they are. So I'll do another stamp over this one because I didn't quite get it. At least I think I do. I remember doing that. Okay, looking good. All right. So that's an orange. I know it looks like a red, but I do believe maybe it is a red. Yes, it is a red. So just putting a few little dots of energy, nothing too contrasting, and then applying some orange in the bottom area because it's closer to the orange color, and wanting to maintain that subtlety. Okay, so we're coming to the end, and the infinity sign. I love what that symbolizes. And then I decide to do my finger dots, and then I don't like the high contrast. It just takes away. So there's that balance of those other things, just a few dots. You could have done any marks, black marks, a swirl, anything. So, okay, I don't know if I ended up, no, I didn't end up doing that. I thought that would have been too much, and I'm glad that I left it. So, vertical broken lines coming down, ending up in a more of a triangular shape toward the bottom of those. And then as I take a closer look, yes, much better. They're there, and you can see them, but then now they become part of the quiet conversation, which is much, much better. Yes. And then just getting rid of that high contrast or higher contrast of white, blending it in. So there's some gradation between those two edges, the white and black and the yellow ochre. Oh, so really enjoying this cover. I'm feeling that these pages are finished, or at least almost finished. And then, of course, finishing up with a little spritz of those little dots. Trying not to use those too much either. But just enough is a good thing, I think, anyway. And now, so I've let it dry overnight. I really think that's important before putting this is the gloss varnish by Liquitex, and it goes a long way. I've had this for a while, and what I really enjoy is using the matte black edges of, say, a gallery canvas, and then just varnishing where the art is, the surface. The contrast between the shine and the dull really makes an interesting edge. So I like to do that to all my canvas work, and really enjoying the finished product here. And there wasn't really, that drip got a little far down, maybe interrupted the page, but in the end I checked it out and it didn't get that far. So this is just sealing it up, protecting everything, and just needing a little bit more on the top. And if you've noticed too, when you add varnish, any medium to finish off your top layer, it really enriches the colors. It makes them really go deeper. And that's one thing that I really like. So as this comes to an end, I hope you enjoyed this 11 by 14 abstract art journaling series. There will be more to come, and but it's time to move on to other projects. So make sure you check out the Facebook group. If you're up to a 10-minute abstract art journaling challenge, I'll be putting up some mixed media series, 2, 3, 6, and 9 pieces together, just to maintain a flow, and I'll be explaining that in the videos. And I usually work 10 by 10 or 12 by 12. So as I finish up with this piece, making sure all the cracks are done, don't forget to like and subscribe if you are enjoying this content. And I will be seeing you in many videos to come for 2022. So, happy creating!